You only have one life to live, so get the most out of it. On Good Life, Great Life, join me, Brian Highfield, and my guests as we share success stories, habits, mindsets, and lessons learned by successful people. These lessons are not taught in schools, but are critical for getting ahead in life. Whether you want a successful business or career, optimal health, or a lifestyle that most people just dream of, Good Life, Great Life has you covered. After retiring from a successful corporate career in my 40s, I founded multi-million-dollar businesses in the sports and healthcare arenas. Now, I help everyday people maximize their lives and speak regularly at seminars, on podcasts, and radio shows to share principles on the topics of health, wealth, and happiness. Don't let a good life get in the way of a great life. Join me today on Good Life, Great Life. Well, welcome to another episode of Good Life, Great Life. So today we have Anna Macsalka. So welcome to the program, Anna.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
So Anna has founded a company called Zenimal, and it's really unique. She's she's a mompreneur, as we like to say, and she started this back in 2017, in this company, and it's just a phenomenal product. I was looking at it online. And I just can't wait to hear the backstory. So Anna, tell us a little bit about your background and the inspiration for creating Zenimal.
Sure. Yeah. So that goes back really far for me. I really struggled from anxiety and panic attacks at a really early age, like unusually early. And this was I'm dating myself, but back in the 80s, and mental health really wasn't talked about, I think, amongst parents, and certainly there was no Google or anything for my parents to turn to. And so my dad would just sit with me for hours and try to get me through the panic attack or through the anxiety. And it didn't always work. He used to joke that he tried to bore me to sleep for the majority of my childhood, because he would just sit in my room and talk about anything and everything. But it really became an issue once, slumber parties and summer camp was a thing. And I literally couldn't go anywhere without my parents, and kind of paralyzed in that fear of if I have a panic attack and they're not there. And so then you start to rely really heavily on your parents, and that builds anxiety. What happens if something happens to them? And so I was like a little bit of a mess as a kid, and I felt very broken. And they eventually enlisted the help of a clinical psychologist. And over the course of several months, going on a weekly basis, she taught me how to control my breath, relax my body, and then I would visualize my happiest place. And it did a 180 on my life. I went to summer camp, that same year for 2 weeks by myself without a hitch. And it was really quite miraculous. And I do think that was a huge pivotal point in my life. And I'm so grateful that my parents had not only, open-mindedness, I guess, enough to do that and support that, but also the resources. I mean, that was a huge financial and time resource suck for them. And so very, very grateful. And so I continued to use it throughout my life. And then in 2015, I welcomed my own daughter into the world. And you're in the hospital with all of the hormones, and it's crazy, and they just let you take this baby home, and you don't have to pass a test, and this feels really crazy.
Isn't
What if
that
she
funny how they
has,
let just anybody
oh,
just
bananas to me, still very bananas to me, that I'm like, you do you want to make sure I know how to like feed it and like do
yeah,
they're like, we don't care, here you
yeah,
go.
yeah, here you go,
Okay.
figure it out.
Yeah, feels like there might be maybe a better system for this, but anyway, you figure it out. And but I really was concerned that she might have this same early onset condition of anxiety. And so I started looking around for tools in 2015. Like, certainly mental health had come a long, long ways, and mindfulness, certainly they had done several studies of its efficacy, and what it does to the parasympathetic nervous system and things like that. And it's like, oh yeah, no, great, this is awesome. So what are tools for kids? And I just kept coming across countless apps and YouTube videos, which are great and super duper accessible and very, very affordable for the most part, and on devices that we have everywhere. But for me, like, I just, since my own like adopting of these devices, like I don't feel great when I pick it up. Right? It is rare that you pick up your phone and you just get like super awesome news that you're like, wow, I'm good. I'm super, wow, I feel good. I feel mellow. My like nervous system is fine. And so I couldn't imagine handing my child a device that does that, that increases um, it gives you dopamine hits and then increases adrenaline and cortisol and then dulls your serotonin receptors and just being like, here, baby, go be peaceful. That felt weird to me. And so at that time, I had been in the voiceover world for 15 years and I was an actress and also ended up teaching Pilates, which was a whole nother thing because I had broken my back and my neck in high school. So I found that. But anyway, so I'd been sort of in the wellness space. I'd been in the voiceover audio space. And I was like, gosh, like how can I use the things that I have done in my life to maybe make a solution, just if not for anybody, just for my own children selfishly, right? And then I started to look around and be like, is this in need? Is there a need, right? Like this is like the first thing as when you start a business, like, is there a need? Will people buy it? Or is this just my weird world? And, coming across, websites like the CDC and looking up statistics that the second leading cause of death, and this was in 2015, the second leading cause of death for kids aged 10 to 14 is suicide.
Mm.
And the fact that I didn't know that I felt awful. And I think it's really sad that a lot of people don't know what kind of crisis we're in with children. And this was pre-pandemic. Like that to me, like still gives me goosebumps. And so I said, well, certainly like this is a really good purpose in life, right? Like if I'm looking for one, like this could be it. And if I can help just one child feel less alone like I did as a kid, then it was all worth it. And then so I started to develop the meditation, starting to figure out like, oh wow, how do you manufacture an electronic device? What is this crazy world? And then in 2018 I was relatively far along with it, and then I got a phone call that my dad, who is my very, very best friend, was suddenly hospitalized. And
Mm.
walking into the ICU room and seeing him there. And this is the guy that helped me through every single hard time in my life and always had a solution. You're so helpless in those situations. And my stepmom said, he really likes the meditations you've been recording for Zenimal. Why don't you start, playing one and just see what happens? And so I did. And his heart rate started to come down and we just held his hands and we all breathed together, and the nurses and the doctors in the room, we all took these big collective breaths and the energy came down and we had this really, really, really amazing hour with him. And it was really like, it was kind of an aha moment of like, oh, this isn't just for kids. Like this is for everyone. We all really need this. And certainly my situation was not unique. Thousands of people walk into ICUs and it's the worst day of their life. And, I think if I could give that moment to those thousands of people, like I'm gonna try my best to do that. And then I got another phone call the next night that he had passed away. Um, the story just never gets easier.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but we lost him, and I think at first I was really surprised that my own heart didn't stop, but
Hmm.
when it didn't, right? Like the world keeps spinning, and I just knew that I wanted to turn the hundreds of people that he had helped in his lifetime into millions, and really I haven't stopped running since that night, and I don't plan on it. And so that year, so that was mid 2018, and then I had industrial drawings and mechanical engineering done by December of 2018. And then by 2019, I was on a plane to China to go tour factories and figure out how I'm going to get this thing made and make it affordable for as many families as possible. And
So talk about that a
um,
little bit, because I think a lot of
yeah,
people are like, okay, I've got an idea for a product. I have no
sure.
idea to
Yeah.
take it to the next stage. Now, obviously, I mean, your backstory and everything there is just, you had a very clear sense of purpose
Yeah, very much
and the
so.
inspiration for doing this. And so that's where a lot of people start, right? They have this incredible desire, a sense of purpose. That passion is just is huge.
Yeah.
And so they come up with an idea. So how did you figure out? Because I wouldn't even know how to how to a
Yeah.
take an idea and actually take it to the next step of something physical, a product to create. How did that happen?
I think one of the very last things that the pieces of advice that my dad ever gave me when I asked, and I was like kind of a little bit lost at this point in life, and I said, like, I don't understand how you did it, how did you do your life? And he said, you know what, Anna, I just surrounded myself with people who wanted good things for me and who I wanted good things for. And honestly, like that is how I have start to finish, like gotten to where I have gotten. I just continue to surround myself with people that I feel I want to help in life, and they genuinely will bend over backwards for you. And it's just a lot of making phone calls and like, hey, do you know an industrial engineer? Right. And Google's your best friend, right? Like, so you're like, oh, what do you need to like start this? So you're like, oh, but I don't know an industrial and a mechanical engineer. Like, where do I find that? And you can, and right, like you can, because I bootstrapped this company myself. So my dad left me some money, and I thought, like, I can't imagine spending it on anything except this. And so to be fair, like I had a leg up. I didn't have to go get investor money. I was pretty privileged at that point. But all that did was allow me to move a little bit faster, which was great. But once you sort of have that money, and now with like Kickstarter, and there's tons of like
Yeah.
pretty easy like cash, like short-term cash that you can come through, but you have to be scrappy. Like that was because I definitely found industrial design warehouses that were going to be like, or agencies rather, that were like, oh yeah, we can do it for $1 million, and I was like, oh, I can't. But you find the people that are excited about it and like that see your passion. And I think, if you have an idea, I would make sure that you really love it, because it is not an easy path by any means, and there are so many downs to, and the ups are great, right? But like, get ready for some like heavy duty falling off the cliff without a parachute kind of thing. And so
Yeah,
I think, but
and that's what I wanted to ask you also is like, what are
yeah.
some of the biggest challenges that were thrown your way, and how did you overcome those?
Yeah, I think certainly the design aspect of it was a little crazy, and definitely made some expensive mistakes. But what you try to do, you try to like move quickly without rushing. I think especially if you're bootstrapping, you want to you it's okay to make mistakes, right? Like, oh, failure is great. You really learn a lot, but you want to make sure that those failures are not going to sink the entire idea. So, like, test the waters with something small. And yeah, it's not going to be the product that you have in your head, like the perfect pristine thing, but perfection like is paralysis of progress, or whatever is the enemy of progress. And it is so true. And so I think like sometimes good enough is great. It's a great place to start. And so I think through talking, I mean, it's really also very cool is watching how it all unfolds, like how your entire life unfolds to this moment where, it was people that I met when I was in my 20s that I reached out to and said, like, hey, I know you do this thing, but do you know someone that does this other thing? And they're like, actually, no, but I know this guy and he's going to know somebody. And so you just keep following that string and that thread, and eventually you will get there. And I think, um, obviously, like, I don't know, like, clearly I'm like in the spiritual world a little bit, right? Like meditation, you have to like believe in a little bit of things that you can't touch. But I think manifesting is such a powerful thing, and I think if there's nothing magical, if you don't believe that there's anything magical to it, it's purely like if you are so persistent in knowing what you want and where you are going, if you keep like either you journal it or you meditate on it or whatever it is, and you're very clear about your goal, you are naturally just going to start making steps, right? They're gonna feel really, really tiny and babyish, and then all of a sudden, like you're gonna wake up and be like, oh my gosh, I have my product, or I have like whatever, or I have a prototype. Holy cow, like this is crazy. You get there. And so I think like just being very, very clear on that, and being willing to work hard. Like my kids were really, really young when I started all of this, and I didn't want to miss out on that. And so I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I would, get emails out, and I would make sure I got my workout in, and I took care of myself, and meditated and journaled and did all that thing. But I did that all before my kids woke up. And so I think definitely stop making, if you make any excuses, stop. Like you're not going to get anywhere. And that was kind of a hard transition to make, because I was tired, right? Like you're tired as
Hmm.
a parent, um and doing all of that. But I was like, no, I really, really want that. And I stayed pretty true to that. And as far as manufacturing stuff, like it's really remarkable now what you can do. And I think there's like, I'm really glad that I was able, this was 2019, so I was able to go to China several times. That did actually make a really big difference. I think, especially being a female in the electronics world, there I definitely had to prove myself a little bit over there, and make sure that they knew that I meant business, and had to play the game a little bit in the beginning. That I would tell them I had like a male investor that wanted these things, and then they would do it. And then at some point, like I literally one day I flew there for an hour meeting. Things were not going well, and I said, I will see you in 17 hours. And I did, and I did it. And that laid the ground properly. And so I think, yeah, certainly, like maybe that was a little bit extreme, but um, and you actually can't go to China right now, so this is actually probably horrible
Yeah.
advice. But I think you do really have to like step into your power with manufacturing, and say, like, because you're gonna always get pushback, right? Like they're gonna say, no, you can't do that, or no, we can't do that. And be like, well, why? Like we have self-driving cars. Why can't I get this
Yeah.
1972 technology? Like, why don't you want to manufacture a 256 megabyte, memory card that was circa 19,
Yeah.
92? I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna need 30,000 of those. And they're like, well, we can't do that. I'm like, I promise you can. Like, just
Yeah.
try. And then lo and behold, like, oh, they just pulled it out of a hat. And so you do, like you just stick to your guns a little bit, and really, like, anything is possible. And I think as founders, I'm friends with and that was the other thing. I think the huge part of advice is
Hmm.
advice is to surround yourself with other founders, if you can, in your space. Like that, I'm a member of a founders group that's mostly children's products, and it's all parents. And so that has been like so huge, because you can go it you we go you know go into the forum and say, I'm looking for a whatever, liability insurance provider or whatever, and you're going to get four people that say, like, here, I love my guy, or don't use my guy, he's awful, I'm also looking for somebody else. And I think that is so huge. And also just to commiserate and sort of whine, and be like, this is really awful, or like, look at what look at what this customer wrote me, like, what's up with that? And somebody be like, oh, I have a better one, look at this, and that
It's a
normalizes
good
all of
support
it.
group, right?
Yeah, it is. It definitely is, because it's like it's a pretty gnarly path, and I don't want to ever deter people from taking it, because the upsides have been so much more significant than the downsides. And again, like I have spent some time crying on my kitchen floor. I'm not gonna lie, when things got hard. And one time I got 5,000 Zenimals that were not work correct, and I had
Mm,
to update the software on every single one of
wow.
those Zenimals. And so there are moments where you think, like, this is it, I'm sunk, this is, whatever, like, this for cash, like, this is all I had at this round, I can't afford to do this run again. And um or when the pandemic, hits, and you're trying to figure out, how to get your stuff from from China in a like semi-timely manner, and you can't. And It's hard. It's really hard. So finding people that you can, lean on really heavily that get it. I think um I have I have friends, but they're in other industries or whatever, and they're like, I don't understand. Why can't you just get another boat? I'm like, okay, well, like that's not helpful advice. Um, so I think doing that, and then oh, imposter syndrome is like the other just thorn in, I think, most founders' side,
Yeah.
because if you're a founder, you're probably doing something that hasn't been done before. And so I think you really, really question, like, oh, well, is there a reason that no one's done this before? Is this a stupid idea? Or I don't know what I'm doing. And I think you think, oh, I need a master's from every Ivy League school to really to deserve to do this. And it's not true. It's not true at all. You can get by,
Hmm.
and as long as you are willing to take the advice of people and then follow your own gut instinct, and like, you are the only one that will ever know what is right at the end of the day. Like, gather all your information, don't be dumb, don't, like, just be like, sure, yeah, I could just piecemeal this thing together myself. Don't do that. But I think, you do have to do, like, oh, is this right for the company or whatever? And like, yeah, I for sure still, even at this stage of the company, and the company is doing really, really well at this point, but there are still days where I feel like, oh, wow, I don't deserve this, or I've duped people, right? Like, if I get, a really great vendor to
Hmm.
work with me or whatever, and I'm like, oh, I bet they don't even know I don't have an MBA. Oh God, like, like, whatever. Um, but I think, but then you just have to, like I said, like, step into your power and own it, and know that you are limitless. Like, you really are, honest to goodness. Like, if you are following your passion and your dream, and you love what you're doing, you are limitless. Like, everything is very, very possible. And, um, keep looking at, like, again, like I said, like, we have self-driving cars. Like, what if, those people thought that, like, oh, that's not going to ever be possible. It is all possible. And again, like, just being authentic in your
Yeah.
approach, and keep maintaining who you are through it, and is also really important. I don't know. Is that helpful? It's pretty
Yeah,
long-winded.
absolutely. Because I mean, you're talking about limits. I mean, we impose limits on ourselves, and they're only
Yes.
applied to us. And
Yes.
until people learn that kind of, well, I think they call it the law of the lid, right? It's we put our lid on ourselves, and until we take that lid off to understand that we're truly limitless,
Yes.
and get through some of those stages of anxiety of
Yeah.
am I going to succeed or not?
Yep. Yeah. And I think that, like, obviously, like, I'm a firm believer in meditation, but the the studies are there that it does quiet that inner chatter, that monkey mind, and that monkey mind can be so very not helpful, and very, very mean. I think you the person you talk to the most in your life is yourself, right? Like, you will talk to yourself more than you talk to anyone else, even your own kids, even your own anything. And if you can make that voice believe in you, and love you and support you and hold you, everything else is just icing on the cake. And if you can hold yourself and pick yourself up and take your own hand kind of on your own journey, no one can take that away from you. I think, like, that was, something, after losing my dad, I felt like, oh, wow,
Mm,
something has really been taken from me. Um, but when it's just you, like, you always have that. And so learning to be kind. And when you do mess up, like, oh, well, oh, that happened. Oh, sweetheart, we're going to be fine.
yeah.
We're good. Like, we're going to pick ourselves up. And yeah, this kind of sucks right now. Yeah, it does. Like, but like, I'm sure this happens to everyone. It's, you're just being gentle
Yeah.
and kind with yourself. And I think I struggle a little bit with that, because I question, if I'm too kind to myself, am I going to lose my drive? And if I don't hate myself just a little bit, like, am I gonna work that extra 3 hours today? And I have found other resources within myself to maintain that drive, but still find a lot of self love.
Awesome stuff. There's so many golden nuggets that you talked about in there, and just the mindset of an
Oh,
entrepreneur, and the things that endure as you pursue your dreams. It's great stuff. Last question for you, Anna, is how can our audience connect with you, get in touch with you, learn more about Zenimal? Where can they go?
Yeah, so go to our website. It's zenimals.com, Zenimals.com. And then we're available on, I think, pretty much all of the social platforms. We're at the Zenimal. And so that's a great way. And then you feel free to email us anytime, hello@zenimals.com. We do have a customer service team, but they can reach out to me at any point. And so that's kind of where to find all things Zenimal.
Awesome. Great. Our guest has been Anna Macsalka. She is the founder and creator of Zenimals, and definitely check out the product. It's really unique, especially if you have kids. It's definitely worthwhile to look at. So thanks so much for being with us today, Anna.
Thank you, Brian. You take care.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Good Life, Great Life, brought to you by Brian Highfield. We hope you enjoyed listening to this week's guests and stories. If you like what you've heard, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts.